Hi, I'm Dr. Philip Macmillan. Thank you very much for joining me. And today I'm giving you an update as the world of science and COVID continues to expand as to what has happened with Dr. John Campbell. So you may not know this if you're a follower of his. He has over 2.7 million followers on YouTube, but a video of his was censored just today. And what that means is that because there's a strike against his platform or his channel, it means that he's unable to share any videos for a week. Well, for those who follow him and for those who have listened to his exploration of the science, especially around COVID 19, that is very disappointing. And it may seem a forever period of time to wait before you get back to hear him again. And here is his comment on Twitter. And essentially, what he said, his video with Andrew Bridgen, this is the politician in the United Kingdom who has recently lost his job, was removed by YouTube with a strike. So I'm banned for a week, and you can't watch the video anymore on YouTube. This tweet has already had over 200,000 views, and it seems as though quite a few people are now aware of that censorship. Now, I myself have been censored on YouTube and I've been censored elsewhere for following the science. And you have to remember the mantra of Dr. John Campbell is follow the science wherever it may lead. The difficulty with following the science is that sometimes the science tells you things that you don't want to hear. What should you do with that information? Is it that you should say nothing more about it, or should you continue to look at it? Well, let's just start again and remind ourselves as to what Dr. John Campbell has done. He has been sharing videos. He has over 2,300 videos on YouTube. As I said, over 2.75 million subscribers. And he talks about a variety of topics, especially during the pandemic. And he was willing to challenge anyone who was concerned initially about the vaccination program. But as he followed the science, it seems that he got to be questioning some of the science. And suddenly his voice and his principles are inconvenient. That's a problem. Now, I recently had a presentation about Andrew Bridgen myself, where I was just looking at the fact that he had been removed from his position in the Conservative Party and what did it mean. And I think that it's an important point to have him share a few of his thoughts. And one of the very important interviews he had recently was with Neil Oliver. And I'm highlighting this because the two things are connected between Andrew Bridgen, which was the interview that caused Dr. John Campbell to be censored on YouTube, and some of the things that he has to say. Here is a very short clip from this interview on GB News. I hope this won't get me into trouble, but listen to what he had to say at the time.
Is motivating your colleagues then to remain out of it, to keep their heads down?
I had a meeting with a very senior colleague in the party 4 months ago, and at the end of that, we talked about everything for an hour or so, and he was fully in the picture. At the end of it, he said, Andrew, there's no political appetite for your views on the vaccines at the moment. There may well be in 20 years' time, and you may well be proved correct. And the final warning as I left the room was, you need to bear in mind that you're taking on the most powerful vested interest in the world with all the risks that that entails.
That's a powerful statement. And I clipped that because it was so important. We have to reflect carefully on what he was saying. He was saying that there is no appetite in the political system to talk about any risks around vaccination. And that's largely because the politicians have executed on mandates and it has impacted on the population. So one can understand why they would like this to just go away. And anyone who raises questions about it will therefore become a target. That's part of the reason why I have, as you know, my Substack, which is part of what I consider to be an important place for me to be able to share scientific views that, in my view, are a bit more difficult to be challenged. And this is my Substack if you want to see the link. But more than that, it's not just about sharing opinions. I'll tell you why I speak so clearly about what is happening around COVID-19. For anyone who has followed me, they will know that since March 2020, I have emphasized that this is likely to be a viral mediated autoimmune disease, that's severe COVID-19. And our research, which was peer reviewed and published, pointed to the combination between free or serum ACE2 and the spike protein of the virus. The point is very simple. Any exposure from any source to spike protein could potentially trigger an autoimmune response. Why would I come up with that random thought? Well, you would think that if this was just the case now, or if this was true, it should have happened before. Well, this is exactly the point. I asked myself a question a number of months ago, and for anyone who follows me on Substack, they would know this, and it is essentially this. Why didn't vaccines work against SARS-CoV? And in that Substack, I share with my listeners or my audience some points about what had exactly happened. And they tried 4 different vaccines with regards to SARS-CoV. That was the original epidemic in 2003. The virus is very similar to SARS-CoV-2, and critically, it also uses ACE2 as the entry receptor. And so a very important paper was published in 2012. And in this paper here, they found, this is published online, 2012, April 20th, immunization with SARS coronavirus vaccines leads to pulmonary immunopathology unchallenged with the SARS virus. So this is very important. And most importantly, it continued, and in conclusion, they advise caution in the application of a SARS-CoV vaccine in humans. Very, very important point. This understanding that I have with regards to the potential for autoimmunity is what drives me to speak about this. Because if this is correct, and we could have a potential autoimmune problem unchallenged, and this is the important bit. You see, people are forgetting that the virus is still circulating. If the virus had disappeared, and if the vaccines were able to block transmission as well as severe disease, there would be no problem. Well, there could still be problems, but we'll be significantly less. However, technically what we have with Omicron circulating is a challenge study. That means on re-exposure to the virus, there could be immunopathology related to hypersensitivity responses. Now, it's inconvenient. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to look at it. But who takes that responsibility if there are things that we need to understand that haven't been dealt with or could be mitigated if we take the time to look at it? That is my point. That is where I have come from the scientific point of view, is that from a scientific point of view, from a clinical point of view, we need to know, we need to understand. That's what is part of any SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. This is a threat, and everybody in the scientific community should want to understand if this is potentially a possibility going forward as Omicron continues to circulate. I understand that the politicians will probably like to wait 20 years to review this. But if the principles that had come up in our prior research looking at SARS-CoV are correct, circulating virus, large population vaccinated, we could be sitting on the edge of one of the most serious clinical situations we've come across. We need to understand. And anyone who's seen a recent video where we have only done one complete autopsy after 13 billion doses, that indicates we don't want to look. But that's not good enough. Science dictates that we must look, we must understand, and we mustn't be afraid to challenge everything that we're seeing. I appreciate what Dr. John Campbell has been doing. He should be back. Let's hope that he doesn't self-censor in the future. That is a big challenge that he will have to face. Thank you, and I'll continue to keep you updated over the next few weeks. Have a great day.